A lot of literature refers to RegTech spending just focusing on what we call RegTech startups. And yes, it's been growing rapidly and it's expected to be around $20–30 billion a year just on startups in the next few years. But that's only a tiny piece of the picture. As many of you know, I am very passionate about RegTech. RegTech is the use of technology for regulatory and supervisory purposes by financial institutions, regulators, and supervisors to not only provide for greater efficiency, reduce costs, but really to build better financial systems. And so I am tremendously excited to announce that really after over 3 years of work, we are now launching the new CFTE Specialisation in RegTech, looking at the role of technology in finance, compliance, and regulation. We are joined by an all-star cast. Tyler Aveni, Simone di Castri, Claus Christensen, and Subbaiyan Vaithinathan. It is an all-star program looking at the role of technology in regulation, compliance, and supervision all across the world. And I am so excited about RegTech for a number of different reasons. One, let's talk about the business opportunity. You know, a lot of literature refers to RegTech spending just focusing on what we call RegTech startups. And yes, it's been growing rapidly and it's expected to be around $20–30 billion a year just on startups in the next few years. But that's only a tiny piece of the picture. What's the big picture? The big picture is that over the past 15 years, since the 2008 global financial crisis, financial institutions have spent almost $350 billion on fines. Second, every single year, the financial sector spends between $500 and $700 billion on technology. And third, every year, the financial sector spends between $300 and $750 billion on compliance. And at least half of those compliance costs is spent on technology. That is between $150 billion and $350–400 billion a year spent on regulatory technology just by the regulated financial services industry. Second, it has tremendous potential to reduce costs and increase efficiencies. As financial institutions apply technology to do a better job of complying with their regulatory obligations, they're not only reducing their costs, they're also reducing the likelihood of being fined, but they are also building data systems and risk management systems which they can use to improve their own businesses. Not only reducing costs and managing risks better, but delivering better services. And that really highlights the final piece, and that is the idea of using technology to really build better financial systems. You know, this is about regulators standardizing disclosure requirements, setting up digital systems for the submission of regulatory information, and in many cases actually building digital infrastructure, systems like the SEC's EDGAR system or the EU's forthcoming ESAP, the European Single Access Point, which is a digital submission point not only for all listed company information, but also for all forms of mandatory ESG disclosure, which will build a single point of structured data that will not only enable regulators to do a better job of monitoring compliance, but also enable investors, governments, NGOs, and others not only to take better investment decisions, but also to determine what companies are really improving our world, making a difference in the context of sustainable development. So from my standpoint, when we are looking at RegTech, we are looking at a broad picture of transformation and also vast amounts of spending across finance, technology, and regulation. But I think the last point is really key, that when we talk about RegTech, it's not just about finance. It's certainly not a subset of fintech. RegTech is the use of technology for regulatory purposes in any regulated industry. And of course, as we've talked about many times, if we look at COVID over the past 3 years, it has driven forward this sort of use of technology, particularly in healthcare, in travel, and ever more we're seeing it in the context of energy. Wherever there are regulations, one can digitize the compliance requirements and build systems for submission, monitoring, and analysis of data. And that is RegTech. And that is why I am so very proud and excited to be part of the launch of this new CFTE specialization in RegTech.